Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Rise of Kyoshi chapter analysis video. This one is going to be for chapter 5 of the book, and this one is called Revelations. And yeah, we continue on directly from the end of last chapter, where obviously we found out that Kelsang saw something in the sort of poem/song that Kyoshi was kind of singing in the kitchen, and he recognizes it somehow. Now, I explained some stuff from this chapter in the last video, that this was a poem that Kuruk wrote. Well, we get the full details about it now. So, the idea basically as we go into the next chapter is that it's literally just Kelsang talking to Kyoshi sort of in private about this. The idea is that he thinks Kyoshi is at the very least a candidate, could be the Avatar, because he reveals to Kyoshi what we, I suppose, as the audience kind of already know, is that Yun, okay, like he has a claim to be the Avatar, but ultimately nothing's been proven. And, you know, in this situation, the proof really is bending multiple elements, and Yun hasn't done that yet. He is from the Earth Kingdom, he's earthbent, and he's a good earthbender, and that's good. He, like Kyoshi has done just here, has this claim also because he has done some stuff that is very similar to Kuruk, which they explain here. How Jianzhu found Yun as the Avatar. It was actually Kelsang and Jianzhu. They went to Makapu. That explains the title of chapter 3, The Boy from Makapu, in that it is Yun. So in Makapu village, they found Yun on this, out on the street, sort of hustling people with Pai Sho. But when they went there, they found that like, okay, it looks like he's performing a trick. He's playing people at Pai Sho, but he's purposely choosing to only basically draw from the bag of tiles, and that's the tile that he can use. So he's basically using random pieces each turn, and he's still managing to win. So it's not actually a scam. He is just honestly challenging people and only doing it randomly, getting across the idea that Yun is exceptionally skilled at Pai Sho. We already have the details from before that Kuruk, one of his big talents was that he was like a Pai Sho master as well. And Jianzhu notes that some of the strategies that Yun was employing, even playing the game randomly, were identical to master level tactics that Kuruk was playing. So, you know, I suppose the idea here is that Kelsang, in noticing Kyoshi saying the poem that Kuruk wrote, is sort of a similar thing to Yun performing the tactics of Kuruk when, you know, because Kuruk is a Pai Sho master. So that's kind of what's gotten across here, is that Kelsang isn't committing to, like, you are for sure the Avatar, but he is thinking she might be because Yun being the Avatar is somewhat in doubt, because he hasn't been able to bend the other elements, and so on. So that's an interesting one, and the idea here is that it again is meant to play into the rift that's forming between Kelsang and Jianzhu, in that Jianzhu kind of committed there and then to the fact that Yun was the Avatar, seeing him playing Pai Sho the way he did, then getting him to earthbend and seeing how talented of an earthbender Yun is. Jianzhu just put everything on him there and then. He sort of gave up, 100% confirming that he was the Avatar. So he's kind of staked his reputation on Yun, ending the search, the long search. And you understand why Jianzhu would do this, because of, how much pressure has been put on him with no Avatar around, and he wants to make this happen. But given that his status is sort of dependent on the fact that he's the one who found the Avatar, what's going to happen when it's found out that Yun isn't the Avatar, with Kyoshi now kind of beginning to come into play as a candidate? So that's pretty interesting. So this discussion is taking place in Kyoshi's room. They move from the kitchen into Kyoshi's room. And here Kelsang kind of looks around and notices basically the very few possessions that Kyoshi actually has, including the only possessions that she has had from all the way back in chapter 1, basically. Kelsang eventually found her, back in her kind of hideout basically where she was living on the streets, and the only possessions that she had then and is kept up to now are a locked trunk that has stuff inside it, and then a journal that explains what is inside the trunk. There are her two main possessions, her sole possessions from her life prior to being on the streets of Yokoya Port. And then she has a few things that have come into her possession, obviously, since she's gotten this kind of job in the mansion. But one of the things on her shelf is the clay turtle, one of the Avatar relics, which she still has. And Kyoshi notes that she doesn't really remember how she got it, but, she has it. And it's one of those other things for Kelsang where, in addition to the poem/song, the fact that Kyoshi, her test was sort of, it never properly happened. She chose the one relic no one else had chosen that day, but she never got to fully complete the test. And then Yoon obviously didn't even perform the test at all. Very, very, very interesting immediately. So then obviously the attention turns to, wait, what was up with the song? How does that confirm I'm an Avatar candidate or whatever? And this is where the full story of that comes out. Kuruk wrote this poem, and the reason Kelsang knows about the poem is that he says 20 years ago, basically, so this is a couple of years just before kind of Kuruk died, Kelsang was being groomed to lead the Southern Air Temple. This is in or around the time Heiran married her husband, Junsik. Kuruk kind of came back and basically asked Kelsang to look over this poem he had written. It was to confess his love to someone, and is revealed, of course, that he was planning to confess his love to Heiran, who again was just recently married. So Kyoshi and Kelsang kind of have this moment of like, oh wow, and I knew Kuruk wasn't the best guy, but like this is taking it to a whole other level that he was willing to do this. Kelsang says that he stepped in, of course, told Kuruk not to do this, not to try and break up a marriage, just to give this to her. So he demanded that Kuruk destroy the poem right in front of him and not give it to her. He also notes in the dialogue here that from his perspective, he notes that Heiran did actually love Kuruk, but before they could obviously get together, she found Junzik, and then shortly after this incident of like the poem not happening, that's when Kuruk met Umi. And the only thing that's really mentioned about the whole Umi situation is that they basically say, and with that situation, that tragedy unfolded so quickly, it still makes my head spin to this day. So that whole thing, I think that's like the only mention of it in the entire book of, Kuruk's wife, Umi, what happened to her. There is a co-mention at some point later on in the book that I think touches on it. I'd have to get to that chapter, of course, to remember it. But yeah, they just mention Umi like pretty much twice here. Kyoshi notes that she's never heard this story before. And yeah, just that it was a tragedy that happened very, very quickly after he met her. So that's at least some context given to it. This is where Kyoshi is told that Yoon hasn't been able to firebend up to now, and that Kelsang, all he's saying to Kyoshi here is that he thinks it is worth, at the very least, considering her a potential candidate because Yoon hasn't proven that he is for sure 100% the Avatar. Kyoshi actually says, can we keep it a secret for a while? I don't want this to be like public knowledge that I'm an Avatar candidate. That way we give time for potentially Yoon to kind of, unlock his firebending, something else to happen. Maybe then, we can go ahead with this if we absolutely need to. This is at the point where Kelsang notices the clay turtle on her shelf, and it's another thing in addition to the song that, adds to his suspicion that she is the Avatar, that in a way, has he all this time looked after her because he's always maybe deep down felt that there was something there, that they didn't test her, but that it's sort of unsolved, the fact that she did choose that one relic that one time. But yeah, at this point Kelsang agrees, they won't say anything now, but that within a very short amount of time they may have to move ahead with this. And we end with like a little scene with kind of Kyoshi on her own in her room after Kelsang leaves, and you just have her sort of reflecting on it and mainly being worried about the whole idea of, if this comes out, it changes everything. She goes from this position that she's fairly fine with having right now, of just being the servant. She kind of gets picked on in the mansion, but she's fine with it here. She doesn't want her to suddenly be the VIP rather than Yoon. She worries about how it would affect Yoon, how it would affect Jeonju. Everything would be turned up on its head, of like, everyone likes Yoon because of how charismatic he is, how skilled he is. He is the avatar they finally found after all this time, and he has the potential to be on the level of Yang Chen. What would it be like if she was the avatar and it was like, oh, orphan Kyoshi is the new avatar? And she obviously feels everyone has a very low expectation of her, so, you know, the excitement about the new avatar would go down if it was discovered that it was her. The door knocks again. She thinks it's Rangi, but it's actually Yoon at the door. And the idea is that going into the next chapter, they're going to have like there's this scene together. She's met up with Yoon just after she's potentially discovered that she may be the avatar and not him. And I suppose basically we're going to get into the idea of like, okay, we know Kyoshi sort of works at the mansion. The next chapter is going to get into specifically how her role relates to sort of looking after Yoon in a way, and also how close they are. So that's chapter 5 basically. Revelations. It's the real 4 and 5 together are the real start of other characters noticing that Kyoshi might actually be the avatar. The doubts about Yoon. And I think what's impressive so far, just 5 chapters in, is the characterization that you've had so far of a sort of lacking in confidence, Kyoshi, the confident Yoon who is putting everything he has into being the avatar, but hasn't made the breakthrough yet on any element. And then Kyoshi suddenly, you might actually be the avatar, but she kind of doesn't want it, because Yoon, from everyone's perspective, is the perfect candidate. She doesn't want to hurt Yoon by having it be her, because what will change for him? He suddenly was this kid playing Paisho on the streets. I don't know if they get across the idea that he was an orphan or anything like that, but taken from not the best situation, suddenly treated like a VIP. What happens to him if, she's discovered to be the avatar? Does he just get abandoned, or what? It will really play on Jeonju in terms of like, will he still care about Yoon if Yoon isn't the avatar? Because we're really getting this sense of, does Jeonju care about his position in the world more than he cares about Yoon as an individual, given that he is now kind of responsible for him? What's going to happen when we know the truth and it comes out that it is actually Kyoshi who's the avatar? They're the great things that I think are at play here, in that we're only a couple of chapters in, and it's already sort of beginning to sort of simmer a lot of nice character stuff. Primarily, Kyoshi, Yoon, and Jeonju also. But they're my thoughts on chapter 5. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.